Great, everyone. Let's call this meeting to order. Eli, can I have attendance, please?
Yes, I have taken attendance.
So before we move on to the agenda, I just wanted to say congratulations and welcome to, congratulations to the re-election of Trustee Vanderbrook. And then welcome again to Trustee Kleinman, who was appointed earlier this year and had to run for election. So congratulations to you both on your win, and a warm welcome to incoming trustees Trudeau and Solomon in January. So I'll miss that meeting. I'll try to see if I can catch it. But thank you for running and thank you for continuing your service. Let's see, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I would move to approve the agenda.
Second. Oh.
Eli, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Here's Victoria. I'm letting her in. Okay, and motion to approve the agenda. Trustee AACHM?
Yes.
Trustee Green? She just came in. Trustee Kleinman?
Yes.
Trustee Leha?
Yes.
Trustee Moore?
Yes.
Trustee Song?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook?
Yes.
And Victoria, if you can hear us, we're approving the agenda.
Yes, that's fine with me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Eli, do we have citizens' comments?
I have not received any as of this
We have the consent agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Can I get
Yeah.
a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
A second. Karine. All right. Thank you. And we'll have another roll call vote, please,
Okay,
Eli.
Trustee AACHM?
Yes.
Trustee Green?
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman?
Yes.
Trustee Leha?
Yes.
Trustee Moore? Trustee Song?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook?
Great. Thank you. And now moving on to, so citizens' comments or no citizens' comments?
We have not received any citizens' comments as of this moment.
Okay. Well, Eli, can I ask you to help me
course.
invite folks to submit them before the end of our
So if
meeting?
you would like to make a citizen's comment that would be read at the end of the meeting, you can either email it to ask@aadl.org, or you can call 734-327-4245 and leave your comment as a voicemail. Or if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave your comment in the live chat and we'll read it at the end of the meeting.
Great. Thank you, Eli. Moving on to financial reports with Josie, please.
Thank you. So on pages 19 through 23, you will see the financial report. The cash, including investments, increased on September 30th, 59,773 as of October 31st. Tax receipts, 99% of the annual expected tax receipts have been received as of October 31st, 2020, which is really good. That's a very good sign, a very good indicator for us. Your fund balance chart is there, and you can see the fund balance is climbing back, and it is at $8,400,252 as of the end of October from last month. From last month. So revenue, total cash receipts through October 31st equals $17,557,331. The actual cash expended through that same date is $5,513,015. Revenue over and under, the actual cash receipts are 98.46 or almost 99% of the budget, and actual cash expended is 30.92% of the budget, which is a third part, relatively good, because we're about a third of the way through the year. So that's good. We'll see a better look at the budget after we pass the new year. So we'll have a better idea of how that's going to go. Then there's the grants and memorial graphic below, letting you know how that's That's pretty much unchanged from last month. Then the balance sheet, governmental funds for the 4 months ending 10/31/2020 is showing you that the total governmental funds is $22,682,925, and that what your the liabilities of the library are about 409,000 of that. The deferred outflows, which is the deferred revenue that were the taxes to come in, but defer how you pay it out, is 11 million. So add those together, and it's 22,682,925, which is what it should be. The statement of revenues and expenditures of the general fund, which is what we call the operational budget, not all the funds combined together, but the operating, what we're spending month to month. The actual of October, the year to date, the budget, and what's remaining, and the percentage. And what's important is that we are not on the percentage side of financial reports. We're not in arrears anywhere. We're not overspending anywhere. So that's good. You can see where we have spent very little in places like seminars, conferences, and travel, which is to be expected. I don't think any of us really knew in May when the budget was adopted what this year would look like. So that $29,000 that was budgeted for that, we've seen very little expenditure from that. The same is true for other types of things. Our library programming expense is much lower because of online efforts than we would have imagined that it would have been in a regular year. So when you look at these numbers, you can see where the differences are between what's a normal year in terms of open doors and programming and this type of activity that we're having now. And then the last page is the statement of revenues and expenditures, governmental funds for the 4 months ending for the beginning of the year to October. And this is just showing you the general fund, the restricted grants and funds, and the total governmental funds. So it's bringing those two together. And you can see that those numbers also match up with the numbers on the first page that I gave you. So if anyone has any questions about any aspect of the budget, I'm happy to address that.
Josie, can I ask one question, please?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I can't see you all at the moment, so I'm just looking at the packet. So
which page?
I'm on page 23, the page that is the general fund. And am I remembering correctly that materials that we buy, like books and magazines, are those reflected in the materials line of that budget?
Yes, that's
and
right.
We're at 20% now, which makes sense to me that we might be a little bit low, but I wonder, based on where you think, recognizing we don't know when we'll be open again at this point necessarily, what that number might end up at the end of the year, if we have an opportunity to purchase different kinds of materials, or whether you think that we'll hit our budget number that we've already allocated.
I don't know that we'll spend the entire amount this year with the closure. And with the 20%, I think what we're showing is it's a matter of getting material ordered and in. And we just in the fall were able to staff up totally enough to start working through full acquisitions of material and processing all that material. So we didn't have a lot of time to catch it all up. So depending upon how long this next period of time is where we're not fully staffed within the buildings, I can only guess right now, Victoria, but you're right, 20.53 is low for right now in a normal year. I don't know what that will look like in January. I think we'll have a better.
Can I jump in with one quick detail here? This is Eli. Just that number does reflect what is expensed, not what is encumbered. And a lot of our vendors are very backed up with their fulfillment. So that reflects what we've received and what we have opened, but not necessarily what has been ordered at this point.
Right.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, so I'm glad he reminded us.
So I think the point is we could see a huge jump in that not based on we've ordered things in the last month, but the fact that they have suddenly been expensed.
Right.
I guess the one thing I'd add to that, I mean, I'm rolling off the board, obviously, but thinking about closures and how we're all sorry not to be able to get printed material into people's hands, whether there's an opportunity in the coming weeks and months to get more printed materials in people's hands that involves additional expense. If I were going to be on the board, I'd be really interested in supporting that. But I know that, you know, Josie, Eli, and all of the staff at AADL will be thinking about these things long before I keep saying them today.
Well, we don't have specific answers, but we have been thinking about what possible ways we have to do that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions about the financials? Thank you all.
Great, thank you, Josie. Moving on to committee reports, the executive committee met just prior to the board meeting, and we discussed the closure, the announcement, impact on staff, our worries for staff and their families, what early next year might look like financially. I won't be here as well, but I think of the library, and my worry for the library will continue. Let's see. I don't know. Did I cover everything? Corrine, Jim, did I miss anything?
That was about it.
I think that was about it.
I would just say, I mean, Josie's going to speak to the closure a little bit more. But, you know, as we were discussing it, I was reminded that we have been running a pretty successful, you know, material pickup operation since June with one small closure in one building. And I just want to congratulate you all for like doing that so successfully and getting us to this point that we haven't actually had to close the whole system down since June. So, you know, we've been really lucky to have great planning and really have a plan that has worked for getting materials out to folks since then.
Thank you.
Well, that planning continues to the best of our abilities during a pandemic without a vaccine. So thank you, Josie, and thank you to the staff. And we'll cover that in a bit too.
Yeah.
Which is right now with the director's report. Right. Josie, do you want to go ahead and jump right in?
I can. I have slides, so I'll let Eli bring up the first one. And this is a photo of the new lockers at Westgate, and they were completed earlier this week. And so when locker service resumes, they should be ready to go, and we'll have a fourth of 5 locations with no contact pickup at all. And so we're looking forward to that. And that's actually one of those mitigating plans, Victoria, that we have in our mind about how to begin back, what are our options. And so having lockers in almost all our locations will be a huge help for that. So I'll talk about the closure, but I'm gonna go down. I have an order. I was very pleased to help convene the latest phase, the phase 7 of the Living Oral History Project with the African American Cultural and Historical Museum last Sunday the 8th, whatever, if it was last Sunday a week ago. And we had record attendance. 66 people joined us via Zoom. It's the first time it's been done via Zoom. I'd like for you to draw your eye to the drawings of the six participants. We've usually been able to have photographs, but because of the conditions in which we're all living, James Rocker, who's an artist who's been in Ann Arbor, who lives now out in California, did these drawings of Don Simons, Thecla Mitchell, William Hampton, David Rutledge, and Harold Simons to great acclaim. People were very happy about it. I'm 65 attendees. I guess I was counting me and Eli, so I don't get to do that. So 65. But the stories are amazing. I'll point out that a couple of these persons were in school during the civil rights movement under 12th grade and lived through that as a kid in Ann Arbor. And those are unique to this project so far. We've had many people who are older, but listening to them talk about living in Ann Arbor, in a segregated Ann Arbor for school, and how that affected them and their choices growing up. And there's still people who live in Ann Arbor and love Ann Arbor, was very, very moving, very brave, frankly, and very moving. So I recommend that you go and listen to these when you have an opportunity to do that. And I just want to also call out Joyce Hunter. Joyce continues to make this all come together in such an amazing, seamless way between the Ann Arbor Cultural Historical Museum, their members, and the public library and the community. And I think she deserves a lot of credit. And the more we can give her, the happier I am. So. Tiny Expo obviously will not be in the laboratorium of the downtown library, but it is currently online at tinyexpo.com, and there are over 35 artists, crafters, and makers through December. And this is a way to continue to support the many artists, crafters, and makers who were in the laboratorium during Tiny Expo. And you'll see some of your favorite people and some new people if you attend tinyexpo.com. Our ongoing discussions with Black Lives Matter continue, and you see the public discussions and then the recorded staff discussions, including the film King in the Wilderness, children's book The Other Side by Jacqueline Woodson, The Souls of Black Folk by Du Bois. I say Du Bois, somebody will correct me, but that's how I grew up saying it. So I just decided I was going to say it that way tonight. And if I'm getting corrected, I'll be corrected. The public discussions, Eloquent Rage, The Cooking Gene, King in the movie, and also the other two. So the recorded staff discussions are to listen, and the public discussions are to participate. So we're continuing with those. My second grade library kits were mailed out to 1,000 second graders, and some of you know some second graders who've received them. And we have second grade visits have been going on at the library long before I came to work there in 1999, where every second grader is invited to come, get their library card, use it, have a story time, and go away with books from the library. And we just felt like we couldn't let a year go by and not acknowledge second grade. And this was our way of doing it. And so the next slide, I think, is, this actually, a little later, you're going to see a comment from a young man who received his second grade library visit kit. But this is shelf service. And shelf service is one of those amazing services that we implemented a few weeks ago that grew from 100 requests to over 150 by the time we closed on Saturday. And it's been so successful and in such a positive for everyone involved. We'll continue shelf service, not only during the pandemic closure, but after we reopened fully to the public, we will continue shelf service because it's been so amazingly popular. Busy people are busy people. And if you can't get to the catalog to search out 12 books on a certain title, a certain kind of dinosaur for a certain age child, then why not ask us to do that? Because we can do that very quickly. And so that's what we've been doing and having a good time with it. So the summer game shop, we have about 1,700 orders still to be filled, but we have been getting things out to people regularly. We appreciate how patient everyone's being. Your order is with us. We have it. You will get it as soon as we can put it where you can pick it up. We will make sure that you will get it. So. And then closure comments. I think that you have seen a number of them the blog post. This is a positive one, and they're almost unanimously positive. There are a few that are not, and that's to be expected. It's a disappointing turn of events for everyone involved. I will talk about that for just a second. We made the decision to close on Saturday when we realized that we had a number of staff and immediate family members of staff from more than one location positive. And we also had a number of staff who were seeking tested from multiple locations. And with the numbers increasing, with community spread in our community and the way that we were seeing it happen, I saw it happening within our own institution. It was a mimic, and I made the decision that we needed to stop that spread and to eliminate the possibility of that more and more people on staff would become ill. We closed. And so while it would seem drastic to some, it seemed prudent and wise to us. And I think that's been borne out. And we're hoping that at the end of this next period of time that Governor Whitmer announced earlier this week, December 9th, which is a week longer than what we anticipated being closed, hopefully we'll be able to resume vestibule pickup. And if not vestibule pickup, at least locker pickup of services. But a lot remains to be seen, and none of it's in our control. So the comments on social media have been incredibly supportive and warm toward the staff, worried about people who are not well, their families, thanking us for what we have been able to provide during COVID since March, and particularly since we reopened in June with vestibule pickup. And we appreciate them all very much and thank them, and would like to express from me and all the staff. We had a staff meeting this week on Zoom with 177 people present. We would like to be open for you too, all of us. And when we can, we will be. But we are here open. The library is open. The buildings are closed. But we are here at aadl.org, and we hope that you would look at that and see the things that we continue to offer, that we've been offering all through this period of time, and then those things in addition. And one thing I'll comment on tonight that's been new since the last board meeting is we've opened our Zoom platform to the general public, and our community with their library card can book meetings time on our Zoom platform. And it can be your neighborhood association meeting, it can be your beading group, your book group, your whatever group you normally meet with, where you've not been able to meet because of a physical location issues, or even that you once met in the library and you're not able to do that, you can now on a Zoom at the library. We will help you in the first 5 minutes or so if you have technical difficulty, but we are not available to manage your Zoom process, but we will help you make sure you get started. So we invite people to use those meeting rooms. This is our second grade box comment that came back. This is a thank you note from Oliver, who received his, and I will let you, I think you can read it on your screens. He dropped off a written thank you note at the downtown library, but she took a picture and sent it to us so that we could all see it. So thank you very much, Oliver, if you're watching tonight. We're so glad you're enjoying your second grade box, and we miss seeing you at the vestibule too. This is the same Ask Us comments. These are people who send in comments online other than the blog comments about the closure. There's one that's not thankful to us and not supportive of the decision, but those are those have occurred, but they are not the majority. And we really appreciate that people will take the time to let us know when they're not happy with library service, as well as when they are. It keeps us honest and thinking about how to get this done during this time without just stopping it completely and for a longer period of time. So, thank you. And same, more of the same. And then I believe the last one is the winter game. Coming soon, there will be a winter game. And we saved it for the end. And the winter game starts January 4th. Details to come. This will be a lot less complicated in many ways than summer game. This is not a bummer game. This is the winter game. This will be focused on things that people can do with what they have at hand. Nothing special required, no going anywhere to look for something, but what they have at hand. And that's the most I'm going to say about it. The details will come, and so people will be able to look forward to the winter game from AADL. Thank you all. Any questions? Thank you.
I have a question, Josie.
Okay.
Did you say that you're closing for 3 weeks instead of 2 at this point?
I think that when you look at the Department of Health and Human Services statement, it's talking directly to institutions like the library about if you're not essential about working from home, not coming in. And so where we were seeing, Jamie, the biggest risk are the persons handling all the material. And so that was where I had to say, okay, this is where I have the dozens of people working through the system handling material. So that's why the vestibule pickup had to stop in order to narrow down the number of people at work. There are people who will be at work who must be at work, but the individuals who were coming in the highest numbers, I felt like no. So in order to maintain our compliance with that, we would stay closed in the sense that we are right now till the 9th of December, unless we can manage a way to staff with smaller groups to what we call load out the lockers. But we're not sure we can. And we're going to be looking at that over the next week or so about how we can do that. We have not announced the closure till the 9th.
Okay.
Because we were still talking about how do we need to and what might we do. So I'm not saying that we absolutely are, but I'm saying that I'm not at all saying we won't.
Okay. I guess I just foresee an extension of some sort of request from the governor beyond that point. And I think there will be a point at which the community is less content to go along with the safety measures. I just feel a sense that they will. I know they're being very supportive right now for the most part, but I think that unless the governor orders a full stay-at-home order requiring people to cease, running shops and things like that, I think there might be a point at which the community will expect to see the library services return prior to the governor completely releasing any sort of restrictions. And I'm just curious what the other board members might think about that.
I mean, I think that you're probably right, Jamie. And in fact, and we did spend a little bit of time in executive committee just talking about how different scenarios might play out just in terms of like service, when and how service resumes. And I think that the takeaway for me, at least right now, is that that Josie and Eli and the staff are building in another layer of kind of security in terms of, having to tap teams out and being able to keep, essentially adding another layer of pods that allows for service to be uninterrupted. So I think there's like some proactive thinking clearly in terms of just like reinforcing the system in one more layer. And then, really turning over to the great news again is just to reiterate that we have these lockers that are up and running and they are no contact. So I think that there's a fair chance that we'll be able to resume some kind of like reasonable service once we get through this period. And I also think that there's, I think the biggest thing will be keeping up with demand and also just communicating that the service won't happen as quickly as it might usually happen. And that's just sort of managing expectations, I guess, too.
Right.
Well, Josie, can you speak to how the library has been organizing staff with pods? I mean, I think that the priority is keeping staff safe.
Well, priorities, keeping staff safe and trying to deliver a library service that people expect and want, and apart from the online, the digital, virtual, but also the material. And we had shelf service was an addition, making sure that the tools collection we were able to do some of those, also the art print. What we had was, we were working in the branches with 2 teams working, but they were on the same days. So that could be its own kind of issue. Downtown, in a building the size of downtown, breaking people up into teams by floor is when you're moving people up and down to pull material. People are pulling material from all over the building. So they're in conflict with different teams, no matter what. We began to see the holes in that in terms of the exposure, especially as we saw the rate of what we were seeing internally with exposure and the amount of testing that people were seeking. And so I knew it wasn't that while it had worked well through the summer when we had 1 COVID positive but no spread, as COVID cases have, as there has been more community spread, exposure has gone up. So we were beginning to see it. And I felt like the way to deal with it was to stop it. Just stop it. And that's why I said for 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks, to stop it, for us to get a handle on how else can we do this that does not put the staff at an undue risk, but yet gets material to people. And so for us, it's going to take time to work through that. And we've already begun those conversations. So what we'll do we're looking at now is not 2 teams, but 3 per branch. And then downtown, finding a way to separate activities that are not corrupted by other activities, if that's the best way I put it. This is no one doing the wrong thing. No one on staff. This is no one's fault. This is just the work, and we've been trying to keep up with demand. Honestly, trying to keep up with demand, and so I think we'll have to make it clear that we will have to control demand. We will have to make sure there's a throttle on what we can get done safely in the near future, if that's fair, if you can hear that as fair.
Do you mean something like putting a cap on the number of books that you can request at a time, or
And we've never done that before, but that is one option. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Josie, I mean, I'm very sorry to hear about any of the staff or any person having a positive test themselves or among their family or their contacts. But I want to be clear, we don't have a reason to think that there's been spread from the library activities, right? We're trying to, we don't have evidence of that so far, right?
Not so far. The spread has been into the library.
Right.
Right.
And with the high rate in the community, of course, I mean, many of our businesses are having to change the way they're doing and reduce the number of people who are in the spaces. I don't know what my other colleagues would say, but I would certainly support keeping staff safe and our community by not spreading the disease, even if it means we have a lower quality of service or we are able to distribute fewer materials. Because I think not that we like that idea, but that is just where we are, that we may have to adjust our expectations about how quickly the library can do stuff, or even if there are certain things you say, look, we're not going into those stacks until X period of time. I would be very supportive of that.
Thank you.
I second
I
that.
might just represent like an outlier because my partner works for a business that has never been able to close. So I watch them, in order to stay open, they have to figure out how to stay open safely. I think they've done a lot at Zingerman's to adjust what they're doing. So it's quite different than normal times. You know, 3 people are allowed in at once, and like there's no ordering sandwiches in person. But I think that I really worry. I think I would be disappointed to see the closure extend, or the complete cessation of the services extend beyond 2 weeks. Like I don't see the governor's order as being directly related to the services offered by the library necessarily. But I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are different ways to sort of pick it apart and think about it. But I don't know. I feel like if we want to be totally safe, then we should tell everyone that we're just going to do online services. I don't know. I guess I'm being like quite off to the side here.
No, Eli had made this comment during executive committee saying that, the buildings are closed, but the library isn't, right? The services still continue, and there's significant services virtually in support of, kids in public schools. I don't know. I think, it took us from the initial closure from late February, early March through June for us to get to contactless pickup. And I guess we've just got to adjust. I know people are disappointed, but I worry that, I regret seeing community spread between staff. And there's no going back from when that happens, right? I would hate to see that spread from staff to the community at large. I mean, that's the difference between Zingerman's and the library. We're public.
But
I don't know.
But
I really don't. There's no evidence of contactless pickup spread. There's zero. I mean, that really is like a line in the sand for me. The contactless pickup is quite safe. I really don't think that the community is threatened by contactless pickup in any way. I'm very concerned about the staff. I would hate to see spread amongst the staff. But I think that they're also probably, there's risk is present in our lives, and we can choose the level at which we are comfortable with risk. And I think that like all of us probably have a spectrum when it comes to COVID and what we're comfortable with and not comfortable with. And I do respect that I feel it's Josie's decision. I just am like sort of expressing my opinion that I do think probably reflects some members of our community's opinions as well. Like I know there were a few sort of very angry people who were unhappy with the closure. And I side with the people who think that the closure is a good idea. But I would hate to see the library become quite a bit more conservative about closing due to the governor's orders. I mean, the governor very clearly ordered us to close in March. Like libraries were ordered to close. And like we didn't come back online until June because libraries were not allowed to be open until June. Like we came back online like 3 weeks after we were allowed to. So like I've been very proud of how much service the library has been able to offer. And I just don't want to watch us step too far back from offering service to the community. And I think that does need to include access to the physical collection.
And I largely agree with you, Jamie. I think I support the idea of if it is going to be more cumbersome to take more staff effort to keep staff safe, to distribute physical materials, that we should do that and set the expectation that it will be slower or some materials might be unavailable, but that we should be distributing materials that keeping the staff safe, but not just not distributing. I don't, that didn't feel very articulate to me, but I largely agreed with you, Jamie.
I'm glad that you're sort of surfacing this, Jamie, because it's also something that's at the back of my mind too, which is the sense that like we're taking that we don't become so conservative that like a service that a group of our public really attaches a high value to, which is the circulation of physical objects, that we sort of eliminate it completely again. And I think that this has me thinking about a couple of things. One is that we've just taken a really scary turn again. And so like a conservative position right now makes a lot of sense to try to figure out, like, because we've stepped into sort of a new version of this, which is like a more intense and exponentially worse version. And we're not sure exactly how long it's going to last. So I think like for me, a 4-week closure right now, which might extend to like a 6-week closure or who knows, like is a way for us to figure out what the sort of new kind of constraints of risk are, or the new context is. And then the staff has to sort of reinvent into those constraints. And I think that there's also something that, you know, a lot of businesses, a lot of, you know, at least a lot of workplaces like AADL are going to try to avoid putting people on the front line that feel like they are at heightened risk for, you know, for contracting COVID, that like there is a lot of flexibility in thinking about how, like, comfort levels and how to manage risk amongst the staff too. But I agree with you. I think like we have to keep striving to like think about where and how we deliver service, and you know, and also adjust ourselves to thinking about like what people have come to expect as part of the pandemic, which is that like we can't like operate at full demand, and that like we know that we're all sort of like dealing with lower demand. Like we've all gotten used to like going online and trying to get our grocery delivery or whatever. You know, that was like the culture shifted around this. And what I would say too, what also that brings up for me is that like if we start to develop a system for managing a smaller, you know, an adjusted and probably smaller ability to meet a huge demand, is that we find a way to do that equitably. So it's not like everybody has to wake up at 8 a.m. on a Monday to try to get a slot for Tuesday and Wednesday, that we think about how we might distribute that resource, whether it's through a kind of lottery or, you know, some sort of demand list or whatever. But, you know, I'm glad that we're sort of surfacing some of the like possibilities of doing this. And, you know, that's sort of, that's what this is bringing up for me.
So I think one piece of this that I think is important to recognize is that, can you all hear me? I've been having, just looking at the numbers, things are much worse now than they were in the spring, by, as I understand it, orders of magnitude. And the absence of leadership at the state level and at the federal level has put us in a really difficult position. But we have to make like here at this level, we have to be making these decisions based on reality. And the numbers are bad and they're scary. And I think there's the psychological toll too on staff of feeling like they have to be working, even if we're doing everything we can to keep them safer, in a situation that's really deteriorated a lot from when we were all the way closed. I don't know what that means exactly for how these decisions get made in terms of how long the closure is, but I just want to recognize that we shouldn't be the ones making this decision. And Josie shouldn't be the one making this decision, but that's where we are.
Thank you,
Yeah, I
Laura.
do think that like a 4 to 6 week closure is going to make it so that people who have means will buy books from bookstores and they'll order them from online locations. So other people will go to work to fill those orders and then bring them to people's doors. It does protect our group that we have control over protecting, but it does reduce access to print collections in our community. I don't know. I mean, I have to go to work tomorrow. I'm going to work in person to spend a couple hours with a student. Like, I think that like, I'm sensitive to the risk, and I want everyone to know that it's like I participate in it and my partner participates in it every day. So it's not like I am sitting here in my house all the time and like, you know, that's where my perspective is coming from. But I think a 4 to 6 week closure is a big deal, especially without like to just like pull it away.
I want to
know?
make it clear, no one heard me say 4 to 6 weeks
Right.
ever in all of this.
Okay.
I did
I think
not.
I'm like, where did that come from then?
Not from me.
No.
But we were talking about following the governor's guidance.
She
which is
doesn't say
Okay.
4 to 6 weeks either.
No, she doesn't.
4 weeks.
No,
4 weeks.
no, she did not. She did not.
It's through December 9th,
Mhm,
right?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
But,
Thank
you
you.
know, also we're getting updates pretty consistently from Josie when this is even in consideration. So there's a process here where we're alerted to folks who are getting tested, you know, and results when they're accessible by Josie. There's discussion here, and everything changes week by week. You know, I don't think we can't see or know what's going to happen in 2 weeks, you know, and having it, hopefully that means they're recovering and we've given them the time to adjust, and that staff has been able to look into different ways to organize pods between buildings. And as Josie has said during her presentation, trying to figure out how to keep, you know, providing the services through our lockers. No one stopped working. Josie, I mean, the library still continues working differently.
Yep, people are working.
Right. You know, and I know there's just a lot of stress and disappointment from the community. I mean, we've got a lot of things going on, right? Schools remain closed. You know, staff is undergoing the same kind of pressures where you're parenting and working remotely from home. It's hard to plan. And I understand the need and the care that folks feel for the library, where they feel like it's an essential service. But and I'm sure that comes out of love, right? And people really do care and depend on the library. The library's been responsive, I think, to the best of our abilities. Let's just see how we can get through this week before we think about next week and the week after. The governor is limited in how she responds too. And we have different conditions here in Ann Arbor with the student population moving. So, I mean, we've got a lot of balls in the air, and it's a wait and see, not plan. We can't plan too far ahead. We just don't know.
So I largely agree that we can't make decisions now for 2 weeks, but I don't think you meant to imply that we couldn't plan for how we can open safely, Lynn. I mean, that's planning that can happen because it's remote. We can have those conversations about, so that when conditions, and I agree that we have to see what happens in the community, that we're ready with a shovel-ready plan, basically.
Right, depending on if there's more, you know, positive cases, you know, and or fewer, you know, positive cases. It depends on how sick people are. Am I
Right.
just
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
I mean, I think that like there's two different threads here. Like one is like we closed because we had positive cases. And another one is, oh, should we stay closed because there are so many in the community that to open back up threatens our workers because they are gathering during this time. And I feel like this is the one that we've already totally talked about as a group. We talked about it regularly. We get updates about it all the time. But we haven't really, as a board, talked about, because we don't have the governor's steps anymore, you know, we haven't as a board really talked about like what is the threshold for shutting back down again for us, because we're worried about staff working at all. And to me, I feel a little like taken off guard, or like, I guess because like, I don't feel totally prepared to talk about that, or like, or that, you know, I think that like previously we had, like Josie showed us a plan of like, this is how we are in step 4, 5, 6.
Mhm.
And now all of a sudden I feel like we're like throwing that out. And I think it's a little frustrating to me. I just feel like out of the loop, I guess. And I want to communicate, I think I've ad nauseum done that, how important I think the physical collection is. Like, I think, yes, people love the digital services. Yes, the staff is working. Yes, people are doing things that are not physical. But I think that ultimately the physical collection is beloved and very useful to the community. And I personally feel like we should prioritize access to it.
Well, Josie, let's get to level 5. I don't know how the library can help us get to level 5. I mean, that's still in place. I mean, those metrics still exist.
Mhm. But we're going the other direction. We're not going that way. Within the numbers and with the state, that's not how it's going. It's going way the other way. It's like Molly said, it's way worse. So
Would it be helpful, Jamie? I mean, we can still reference that even though it's not in play for the state.
It's how we're acting. Yes.
I think that would be actually enormously helpful. I feel like everyone's looking at me like, don't you realize it's so bad right now? So of course we're going backwards. And I feel like, yes, that would be helpful. Like, because I think that we're talking, I just literally feel like we were talking about we closed because we had positive cases. We didn't say we're closing for this other reason, even though we had all summer, you were like, this is how we're going to know when we need to do this. But
I'm sorry.
I don't think anyone said that to me.
I'm sorry, Jamie. I think my apologies to you for assuming something was obvious to me would be obvious. The steps are the steps were connected to case. The steps were connected to the curve and the leveling the spread and reducing the numbers. We have said all along to you what we're doing to prevent spread within the library. I've made sure you know, as we've known as much of the testing that we knew about, that we were told about. And when that testing was going up, when there are positives connected to the library directly and within families, I saw that and the numbers, the governor was moving the state back. I saw that as, this is it. The phases were still in play, and we're operating accordingly. If that's not clear, my apologies.
Yeah,
I agree. It would be helpful because I think even based on some of the comments, both positive and negative, people were referencing the specific cases in the library rather than referencing okay, and the library decided when these kinds of things happen, we were going to be at that. So I think it would be helpful to articulate that for the public.
So what I will say for the public is, if the phases that were implemented by the governor's office were still those by which the state was making decisions, the whole state would be in phase 1, which is the lowest, which is the worst. So I would just point that out. And as the person in charge of the institution and all these people, that's what I have to go on. And that's what I had to decide in a very short period of time because of the way our testing was coming and the positive. And if that feels knee-jerk, if that feels sudden, I do apologize for that, but it didn't feel that way to me.
This is difficult, right? I mean, we know the community depends on the library and continues to depend on the library, and enjoys the materials. I mean, we just saw the second graders receiving their boxes and how essential that is. That's an essential elementary school, public school experience here in Ann Arbor, is getting your card and having that tour. And but now doing it through video with Josie.
What I can tell you is that the management team is already working today, talking about ways of bringing back pickup, even if numbers stay this bad or become worse. How can we do it? In what ways can we do it? Because we know people really wanted it, and we will. But I thought, based on what we have been operating off of all along, that we had to pause. And we hadn't since early summer, but I felt like it was necessary now. So I made that call. I take full responsibility for that. So if the public wants to be upset, it should be at the library director, not at the library board.
I think that's not like really my concern. I think it's like what Dharma said, like, because we had a plan and it was based on something that doesn't exist anymore.
We were following the plan still. In the absence of a larger state mandated plan, Jamie, we were following the plan because we have to follow a plan. And we're not in a position to make up a plan for all libraries. So we followed the plan. We continued to follow the plan. If we need to do that differently, then I'll hear that. But we followed the plan.
Yeah, I think we just need to like somehow transparently communicate. I think my concern is that I leave this discussion doubtful we will reopen when we said we were going to reopen at the start of the closure. And so I now feel like it's very important for us to communicate clearly so people can have a good sense of what they can expect from the library based on what the numbers are in the state. Because the way that we communicated at the publicly in the board meeting in the summer is no longer the way that people are in our state are going to hear information about the pandemic. And it's also, so they won't have any like, you know, numbers have been going up for weeks. It's not just like at the point that the governor made the statement on Sunday, like she made a statement about, you know, about a week before that. So like at what point did we enter phase 1? And shouldn't we have closed when we entered phase 3? Like that's what we agreed this summer. I think that's why I just feel a little bit like I don't know what the plan is.
So what I would say to all of you is that if you want to say to me that you want to see the library open in 2 weeks, then say it to me. And I'll spend the next 2 weeks finding a way to make that happen.
I think I just want to go along for the ride. I feel like there is a discussion that happened that I was not part of, which is fine because that's how you all make decisions.
It's the staff, Jamie. This was my admin team, and we were working this within what we knew and our numbers.
And the executive committee just met prior. We're getting the same information. We just got it half an hour earlier. You know, so it's not like there's no. You're not being left out of a discussion. Or
it sounds like it would be helpful because the library earlier on had like a very clearly written out, like here are the state phases, and this is what phases. The state isn't doing those phases anymore, but it sounds like we're still trying to react to some of those same facts on the ground, that if with a situation that looks like this, the library is going to respond as if we were in a phase that no longer exists. I think what I'm hearing is a desire to have that articulated more clearly, and perhaps even, you know, based on our assessment, this would be a phase 1 or this would be a phase 2 as a way to help bring people along in understanding what's happening. Because the whole state's been left in the dark. The whole country's been left in the dark.
So what if I offer to bring you a plan based on the published public health metrics that are currently there? And I can bring you a plan and based on that.
Yeah, that's all I want. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even Josie, I think like if you want, because I'm kind of revisiting now, trying to see like how we officially communicated about this. and this has actually been very revealing, because I guess the one thing that I've learned being part of like the U of M community as a staff member is that like everything that happened in the fall was about lack of transparency around like what the thresholds were for closing and who got to work and who didn't and all of this stuff. And the way that this is described to the public in this instance is because there are some positive tests among staff and family, which is not at all connected to what we're saying about like what our plan was. And then so I think like we can go back to the plan, and actually the link should be, we laid out a plan, and it said when we were in this phase, like this is what would happen. And we can just refer back to the thing that we've already done. And it would be really hard, I think, to find that if you're trying to bounce around through, you know, notes on the website and really drill down on it. I mean, that is sort of like, and that's a really, I think we can all get behind a commitment that's like, we're going to kind of go with the guidance that we thought, you know, had been laid out for us, that the state had been evaluating, if that's what we want to do, and keep referring back to that as to how it applies to the numbers that we're seeing now. Because I do think that like that kind of transparency, at least it communicates a kind of expectation to the community that feels far less sort of kind of unpredictable to like what happens to a handful of staff members that are actually doing the work, which is very personalized and very important, but is also not really reflecting what is like the much bigger picture of how bad things are.
Right, because if we hadn't had the positive cases, would we have closed?
Would we have closed? Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question. That's
where I think my head is spinning a little bit. Like, I think like, I just want to get a sense of like, what is the environment, and then what do we do? And I would not push you to open in 2 weeks if you don't feel it's safe. But I want to be able to walk around the community and feel like people understand what to expect of the library based on the way that the pandemic is behaving, and that they don't feel like the closure keeps getting extended and they don't understand why, and they feel sort of sad and frustrated.
Yeah, but we're also, we can only control some. I mean, the pandemic is not behaving.
No, but like, just like tell me, like, if numbers are bad, then we're going to be closed, you know? Like, I think that then we can be like, look, A to Z. Right. That's all I think I want to be able to do.
We can also revisit that plan and decide whether or not we still, like, that plan still makes sense based on like the knowledge we've accumulated about how to do this work more safely than we knew how to do it in April and May. So I think that like there's still, and I think about that because the two things I'm taking away is like, what's the clarity of transparency around why the decisions being made towards us and towards the community in that sort of grander sense, and then what's the level of risk that like we're willing to assume in order to continue service. And I think that like, I'm sorry, and let me just say, like, that's pickup material service. That's not all the other services that continue digitally and online. So this is a knotty, tangled thing to talk about because there is no Uber guidance. And this has been the issue with the pandemic across the entire country. We are a microcosm, right? And we're being left to make decisions for our institution in a very microscopic way. So
this is
it feels important. Yeah, I mean, it feels important.
That guidance to make those.
Yes, and we need to review that roadmap again so that because I think if we do that, then we remind ourselves of the understanding that we share and that we sort of grappled with.
In a system, right? Yeah. So like we're one entity surrounded, impacted by, I mean, the city's made the similar call in closing its buildings, schools, remain closed, university is the university. So, sorry, go ahead, Dharma.
I just want to say that, I mean, I don't want to make an assessment of the risk to staff. I want Josie and Eli. I just feel like they're in the best position to make that call. And I would never feel comfortable as a board saying like, you have to figure out a way to open in 2 weeks to get these materials. I mean, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I agree with being transparent and having the guide and being clear about why we're making the decisions that we're making. And even like looking at it again to see, do Josie and Eli still think that this makes sense given the knowledge that we have about how to control spread and things like that. But
Right. I would just add, clearly when the governor and the team developed that guide, it was, we weren't thinking about, as Jim said, how we could safely provide services, which we continue to think of new ways to safely provide services. So although it helps to go back and look at that roadmap and say, yes, this would have been justified, under the original roadmap, we really are making a good faith effort to redesign and reorganize in a way that actually continues to serve the community. And as long as we continue to do that, which it seems like we are, I think that the community will stand behind us and trust us, because that is what we are doing. So, and I would commend the staff for continuing to do that and for continuing to come up with new ways to do that, because I think that's what really matters at the end of this day. I don't know where we're going to be in February, and I don't think anyone can show me a roadmap that's going to really predict that. That might provide comfort to some, but I am more comforted by the fact that we are just changing, and trying to make it work and trying to serve and support. And I do think there's a good faith effort to do that. And what we saw here is, I think the community's like, you can't possibly use one, positive COVID test. And you know what, it's more than that, because we know if we don't shut down now, it's going to make it that much harder to reopen, and it's going to get that much worse among our staff. And so we do need to trust the staff on these decisions and know that there's good faith efforts behind it, that we really are trying to balance that with safety. So that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't make programmatic choices, right? I mean, this is governance is guidance, and demonstrating, reflecting back on what we hear from the community to Josie. And the community hasn't expressed, I see most folks are supporting this decision. So,
yeah, I don't think though that, I know I'm probably behaving uncharacteristically, but I don't regret bringing this up or having this discussion as a group. I think it's important for us to discuss substantive and difficult issues publicly as a board to make sure we are all on the same page. I think this is what the governance is, like the whole point. So I don't think, like, I'm not pushing for us to open in 2 weeks if Josie doesn't think it's safe. That's not it at all. I just go ahead, Victoria. Sorry.
Jamie, I hear you asking for more transparency and forethought as opposed to questioning Josie's decision at this point. And I would support that. That I thought it was great that we had the plan when we did. We can't rely on it anymore though, because we're not clearly in one phase or the other. We're seeing spread, but retail is open still, which was a phase 4 thing, I think 3 or 4, not a phase 1 thing. So we can't rely on that framework. I do think it's substantial effort to try and think of everything that could happen. I mean, you could kill yourself and never catch up if you tried to write 7 frameworks for the future. But having a framework that we can respond and adapt to, but that is, the vision we're going, that we can share with the public, does seem like a really great thing to do. I know it's work though, Josie and Eli. I mean, it's work. Yeah, I know you're a hard worker, but yeah.
No, it's work. I mean, we were already, I mean, we've already been talking through this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's more about publishing some of the internal things that I'm sure you're already thinking about. I'm sorry, Jim, I don't know if I stomped on your point that you were getting ready to make.
I just want to ask the question of, because on the agenda, this has been a really, I think, a very generative conversation, and like a lot has come out of it in the sense that like we know what some of the needs are, and I also think like we are all feeling like up to here the sort of anxiety and intensity of this, and we're all feeling it in different ways. I want to just I want to be very clear with Josie that I think you've made the right decision. So, and this is what we've done is the right thing. And I think everybody agrees with that. And but I'm also trying to figure out, because we've had this sort of intense and somewhat uncomfortable conversation about how to work through this moment, what do we need to leave you with right now to as an expectation for what happens next? And so I'm hearing people talk about maybe just a bit of a first of all, a little bit some sort of clearer way of attaching to this to the plan that we had, and also a sense of a little bit of just thinking about what this means going forward. But I just don't want to I don't want to have this conversation and then leave Josie walking away going what the hell should I be doing? And also on the agenda we're planning to cancel the December board meeting. So maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe you don't want to do that. Which is the other thing I'm going to say. So those were the points I wanted to make. It's just where do we go from here, and what's the directive for Josie?
Well, I mean, from what I'm hearing is that I have a difficult time when folks talk about transparency in local government. I mean, I don't think folks are intentionally not disclosing, the work that's being done or we would like to have been done. But then again, I know it is difficult to attend these board meetings, right? I mean, we didn't have a public comment. We're going off of blog responses and emails. I don't know how many folks had attended previous board meetings when we initially talked about this in the spring. So yeah, I mean, if it's finding that one slide to talk about the phases, if that's helpful for folks, if they inquire and need it, then fine. I mean, that's something that Josie has available and can make available. I think the bigger thing is if we think about the next couple of weeks and I mean, the thing that we always talk about, and later on in the agenda too, when we have an ongoing discussion with Black Lives Matter, is how do we respond to vulnerable community members, right? And we haven't even really touched upon that. I mean, Jamie, you were talking about, of course, more privileged folks will just order books, and this isn't a huge impact on their lives. But Josie and the staff, and I think folks know, because we know Josie and the programs well, and the staff efforts well, is that none of this has stopped. Their efforts to meet the needs of vulnerable folks hasn't stopped, and those discussions still continued. One thing Josie didn't cover was that discussion with the Delana Center folks and the links that we went to and trying to figure out if there is a way to provide a warm place to stay. But fortunately, that need no longer exists now that they've landed grant funding for folks to stay in hotels. But maybe that's something that if the community is interested in and understanding, I guess, the operations or the thinking behind how we meet the needs beyond the the virtual programs. I don't know if that helps folks understand that the work continues, and that there's a plan. There is a plan, and hopefully we can get back to phase 2, 3, 4, 5. There's no guarantee on that timing, right? So that's the unfortunate thing. We can put the plan out there, but we can't make guarantees. We can only support staff and make sure that they're safe, and support the community as best as we can.
Lynn, I want to disagree with you a little bit, which is, I do think we had a really nice, clear plan, but the problem is we can't say what phase we're in anymore. We're not clearly in phase 1. I mean, the way I look at the old phases, phase 1 is showing widespread. I think I would say that we're between phase 1 and 2 in terms of spread, but we're absolutely in phase 4 in terms of what retail is open. So we can't tie ourselves to the old phases because the state as a whole isn't operating that way. And that's what I would call for an update based on Josie suggested using, I think, the sort of public health numbers, the metrics that are available, since we can't buttress our plan based on the phases anymore because Michigan is not operating clearly. We aren't in a single phase. We're mixed between them. So
right. I totally agree with Victoria. Like, I think just like some sense of, you know, at the moment now we just have WashNA's numbers to look at, or we have the data, but we don't have the same sort of like phases from the governor and explicitly what she's going to call for based on numbers changing. So, you know, with that in mind, how does the library feel like it's going to react to different thresholds of numbers? And like, I think that if we do that, then if we do need to be closed again, we can just point to that and say, the numbers have reached this point, and we said we don't feel like it's safe for our staff to be working, so therefore we will close. And I think like that I can point to. That's what I want to be able to do. I think that's why I started this discussion. I think like that's the transparency I think people might like to see.
Is it reasonable to do that given like, I mean, the position we were in before is that we had clear this has kind of been, we had clear guidelines from the state. There was a phase plan that everybody could follow. It made it a lot easier for every institution to figure out what they should be doing. And now basically it strikes me that we're asking for something that's rather, I mean, I don't know.
But we can make the decision, right?
We can look at the numbers within that plan. We can look at the public health metrics now, and we can make an attempt. The incident threshold still exists, and we will use that information. And I think that try to have something more concrete so that we have been able to point to something up to now, and we're in the same space everyone else is, and timing just being what it was. I made a decision. I think that if we want something that you can point to, that you've all seen and understand that that's the path we're going on, then we can develop that. But I recommend that you not cancel the December meeting. I think you have to have a December meeting to talk it out.
I think that's good guidance, Josie. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's what I'd like to see. Some translation of the plan we had to our new way that we have of assessing that when we're not getting that guidance from the governor.
Right.
Well, thank you, everyone. This has been good. No regrets. This is great. I mean, there's no guidance. How does a local entity function during a pandemic? You know, what happens when a governor's executive orders can't be fulfilled and supported by the legislature?
I can't wait to tell somebody's grandchildren about this. You know?
Yeah, I mean, restaurants sue the governor. I mean, there's a lot of
became public health experts. That's what I feel like I'm having to do, because I'm in the same situation at my work where we're having to make decisions about what we keep open and what we don't. And it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate, but it's work that we have to do. You know, so this is where we're at, and then we can see each other again in December. We can hopefully, we'll have good news, hopefully from Josie on, on COVID rates with staff. So let's just send our well wishes for, getting better to staff and their extended family. And stay tuned. And Josie, you remain committed in letting us know if anything changes between now and December too. Yes. And you've been, I think the staff has been putting out notices on social media and a press release. So it's known what we know, we share as best as we can.
To the point of violating someone's privacy, yes. Don't do that, but otherwise, yes.
All right, well, this is good. I mean, it's what's good that can be in a bad situation. So do we have any additional? This is Josie's. We're responding to Josie's executive report, so we haven't moved along on the agenda very much.
I do actually have something I was going to say, which I wrote down before, and that's just that, like, the shelf service is like so. I just want to commend you again about that, and that's why I feel so strongly and passionately about providing contactless pickup, providing access to the collection, because I think it just demonstrates how you are a library that is both completely forward thinking and does things that people never imagined libraries could do 25 years ago. And that at the same time, you have this incredible traditional service that you offer, where your staff can like read the minds of the community and provide them with a book, like in a packaged up for them to like open up and enjoy. And like, it's that providing of the joy that I just think that you do so well. And I'm just super committed to to demonstrating or like expressing how important I think that really is to the community, on top of everything else that you do so well.
Thank you, Josie. Thank you, everyone. So how about we move on to Len, who's been waiting patiently to give us an exciting, always exciting update on our construction projects. Yes, thank you. All right, Len, you're up.
Good. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
All right, very good. So I do have some updates on the old business, our open projects. Josie mentioned the locker install at Westgate. That happened yesterday. So there's a little bit of work on the inside of the building to trim out the room and get electrical where we need it, but that should be up and running very soon. We're finishing up the carpet on the second floor downtown. The shelving was moved back in place last Thursday and Friday. The flooring installers finished their work Monday morning. So our staff's now moving some of the furniture out of the basement back onto the second floor, getting the staff area put back together. We had to remove everything from offices and so on to get the work done. So that's complete. That looks really good. The youth restrooms, we have the walls are up. We have the plumbing roughed in. We have most of the rough in for the electrical work. And now it's going to be moving on to some of the finishes and things. So that one's, it's still exciting to see that finally happen. And hopefully if we have that December meeting, we'll have some slides for you to see, so you can see that work being done. And lastly, our generator project, we're still waiting on some permits and just some final site prep things and getting a DTE. We need to get one of their reps assigned to the project, so we're working through that. But all projects are going pretty smooth or nearing completion there, except for, of course, the generators, which is just kicking off and probably will, most of that work will happen in the spring. You guys have any questions? All right, well, that was easy.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, yes, go ahead, Lynn.
Would we consider additional lockers? Are there additional sites where the lockers would be?
Right now, I think we've exhausted that, but if the need's there, yeah, I think we'd always look at that. So Mallett's was the first branch that has the lockers, right? And it's a smaller bank of lockers. And then Pittsfield has a much bigger bank. And then the two that we've put in for Trevorwood and Westgate, it was about the space we had. So the number of lockers we put in was based on the available space we had. So we can do different things with appointments to get the lockers able to be used more. Right now we have a pickup window from 6 p.m. to 2 p.m. the following day. The more they're used, the more we can look at the way the appointments are done, probably get more use out of them. And we'll always look at those types of things. But right now, I think we've exhausted the amount of locations that are actually fixed to a building where staff can fill the lockers from the inside and not have it be a kiosk or something like that outside.
Yeah, we can't really, it's hard to enforce folks actually wearing masks when they pick up from lockers too. So well, I mean,
They don't have to wear a mask to pick up from a locker.
I know.
They're not inside the building.
Right. But they still breathe. But there are conditions that we look for before we install the lockers, like line of sight and safety, and right. So it's not.
Well, you have to have access to the backside, right? That's the and where's that in the building? And with Mallett's Creek and Pittsfield, that was part of the design of the building. So they were always going to accommodate the lockers, where we've had to, there was measuring involved and where can we put them. And that's how we made the decision with the banks. We could have gone with a bigger bank of lockers. They sell them in banks of 10, but we didn't have space for what we had in the building to be able to get to the backside of it.
Well, I'm glad we were able to manage to put in what you've put in so far. So thank you.
Yeah, and that's a great service. So I'm happy. One took longer than expected, just because of some of the permit work, but really happy to get those in and get them used.
All right, thanks, Len. Do we have any other questions for Len?
Okay. Well, thank you
All right.
guys. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to our resolution to adopt policy revisions. Do I have a volunteer to read the resolution?
I'm happy to read it.
Or should we vote to, this is a roll call item of action. Yes, let's go ahead and read it. Thank you.
Wait, do we read it and then move, or?
We used to read and then move, and we kind of reversed it at some point, and I don't know when that happened. So I think it would be great to go back to reading it and then moving
let's
it.
read it and then maybe it makes more sense. Sorry if I was the one that was behind that.
It's the pandemic, so everything's upside down.
Was it Kareen? Were you offering?
Yes, happy to quickly read this and
Thank you, Kareen.
go back on the road. So this is the resolution to adopt the policy revisions that me, Dharma, and Jamie worked so hard on, and we got input from the board and we made those changes, and so we're ready to resolve this and get it into effect. So the board resolves as follows, that the following library policies are revised as proposed. 4.1, meeting room use. 4.4, exhibitions at the Ann Arbor District Library. 5.1, behavior in the public sectors of the Ann Arbor District Library. 5.4, unattended child. And number 2, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
Great, thank you, Kareen. Thank you for all of your hard work. Can I get a motion to approve the resolution?
To approve the resolution.
Discussion?
Need a second.
You need a
Wait a
second.
Second, sorry. Is there anyone willing to second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Jamie. Discussion. Kareen, do you want to give any additional background on this?
No, I gave it before I read it. I think you all remember we wanted to make sure that the library was welcoming and that there weren't any hidden inequities, although we know that that's always going to be something we have to watch for. And so I totally support this, and I think we'll continue to be on our toes and to continue to look for new ways to be more open to the community, especially in this pandemic. As Jamie pointed out, we do have to figure out ways to make things work. And I think we're going to continue to make a good faith effort to do that. So are we ready to vote?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I thought this made sense. I want to say thank you, Kareen. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Dharma, for your work on this. I loved the way we talked about this last time. I love the way that this gives both latitude and clarity. But I have one particular question, which is we talk in the about revoking library privileges. Can we define what we mean by revoking library privileges? What is actually revoked?
What it means is that a person's not allowed in to use the library, and their card is, they can use their card for now for virtual online reasons, but they can't be in the building. So their privileges, right, their actual library privileges within the building, they're revoked.
But they can still use the databases, the things that have no interaction with other people?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
It looks like we now know how to better serve them after what we've done. so far with COVID that they'll be able to, get even more services, even though their building services are revoked. Who knows? Now that we know how to do that. So.
Yep.
Great. Any other questions for the committee who worked on this? All right, thank you. Let's move on to roll call vote. Eli, can you help us out, please?
Yep. Trustee Ackman,
Yes.
Trustee Green,
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Leha. Trustee Leha. Oh, sorry.
You're
Yes.
muted.
Okay, thank you.
Muted.
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
Trustee Song,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you. Moving on to our next resolution to repeal library policy 5.3. Can I have a volunteer to read this too?
I'm happy to quickly read this.
Thank you.
Moving along. As it follows from the other resolution.
Right.
So, Josie, you want to speak really quickly about this one?
This is to repeal the use of phones. There's no longer a concern. The ubiquity of cell phones has mitigated the number of people asking to use a desk phone at the library. And so we often, if someone asks, we will dial a number for them and they can use the desk phone. It was once a significant time taker, and it took the phone away from the general public because a phone conversation isn't necessarily timed by the person speaking, to be very short. And so it was once a big problem. It's not now. So.
All right. So I will go forward with the reading. The board resolves as follows: that policy 5.3, patron use of phones at library service desks, is repealed. That all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
Great. Can I get a motion in support of this resolution?
So motioned.
A second.
I second.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Okay, great. Let's go on to roll call vote, please, Eli.
Okay. Trustee Ackman?
Yeah.
Trustee Green?
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman? Sorry? Okay. Trustee Leha?
Yes.
Trustee Moore?
Yes.
Trustee Song?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you, everyone. To our Black Lives Matter discussion. So here we are. Let's dig right in. I think last time we met, we talked about the IDI work and partnering up to finish our homework. And my thanks go to Trustee Vanderbrook for messaging me saying, who's my homework buddy? So I partnered folks up, but I didn't partner myself. And I only finished half of my homework. So I'll just lead with that. And will dedicate myself to finishing my homework next month. Would anyone like to share your progress or how that worked out?
We haven't been able to start yet, but we have plans to start.
Anyone else?
Sorry,
You know,
I was waiting to hear the
a
partner, and I didn't start doing anything until then. And then we did a little bit of coordinating back and forth, but we just have to set a date and then do it.
I appreciate that. I mean, it's extensive, and it's more than it can be finished in a week or a couple weeks. So even if you can touch on a couple of things, I think it'd be nice to end the year with knowing that we've made further progress on this. I mean, we asked a bit of staff, so let's try to see how far we can get. Any other thoughts?
I really valued the conversation I had with my pair. I don't know if I can out you. Do you feel comfortable with that?
Yes, that's fine, Jamie.
I don't know. I think it was very useful to think about the questions specifically related to our service on the board. I think like in the past, we've had all these discussions that would like trickle up when we weren't supposed to be having them about how the board could work better together. Because we really needed to talk about that, but there wasn't like a good time necessarily for it to come up more formally always in the past. So it was a nice, opportunity to talk about diversity, the board, our relationship with the board between the staff and the board and the community. So we only talked for like half an hour or 40 minutes, I think. So, it's just the beginning of something, but I'm glad I did it.
Well, I took a little bit of time to take a look at what the county's doing with their race equity office and how they have, someone specifically working in this area. So if folks want to add additional homework, I would encourage you to take a look at their work. Former County Commissioner Felicia Braybeck, I think, led that initiative and is now our state rep. And actually, the work behind me is related to that project. So this is artwork from Hong Kong artist Yen Izaro, and she chalked this, I think, at Liberty Square Park. And it's a breakdown of different area codes, or zip codes, I'm sorry, in the area, and the difference in life expectancy between Ann Arbor and Ypsi City, which is an average of 14 years. And we talk about these things, but it's to see it visually and know that it's connected to folks is it puts lived experiences into perspective. So I encourage you to take a look at what the county is doing. We're lucky to have that peer in town, another public institution doing this work seriously too. Any additional thoughts?
The United Way, I don't know if it's Washtenaw County's United Way, but I came out locally, the equity task force work that it does. There's lots of information on what you just said, the zip codes, and lots of little daily projects that you can sort of use to reflect and sort of inform your walk, because this is really about a lifestyle change. It's really something that you have to think about all the time so that it's sort of the way you walk through life and not just something you sort of just say, look, I did it, I'm done. It's going to keep coming. It's going to always be there. So I recommend that as another good source to sort of help you with your homework.
Great. Any additional thoughts? I like how we challenge ourselves and we're honest about any progress we've made or are trying to make. So I'm glad. Thank you for having those discussions with your partners. And feel free to give me a hard time too, if you feel like I need to work harder. Great, thank you. So moving on with the agenda to new business, we have a resolution of appreciation to Victoria Green.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Do I have to vote? Can I abstain? Do I have to vote yes or no?
You have to read the resolution. No.
I want to read it.
According to the bylaws, you have to vote.
That's right. There are no abstentions allowed. That's right.
There are no abstentions allowed.
Roll call vote. Can I read it, Lynn?
Yes, please. Thank you.
The board resolves that the Ann Arbor District Library Board would like to officially thank Victoria Green for her 4 years of outstanding service as an Ann Arbor District Library Board trustee. That the Ann Arbor District Library Board would like to recognize Victoria Green for her dedication, leadership, and commitment to the library, community, and staff. That all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with this resolution are rescinded.
Can I get a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
A second. Any discussion?
I have a comment.
Wait, Victoria, you have a comment?
I do. I want to take this moment to talk about the library and my service on the board a little bit. And what I want to say is that tonight's meeting was difficult in some ways, right? I felt like we were dealing with hard issues. We weren't all immediately on the same page. And the conversation we had this evening made me regret leaving the library board. It didn't make me eager to leave the library board. And I think that that is a testament to, first of all, the ways that we can work together and that Josie and Eli help us to do that, that we can work for all of us are working for the best of the institution. But also it made me, the hard work made me want to work more for the library because the library is so fabulous. And I'm going to miss you all. So that's it.
Well, I think about, I'm sorry, Lynn, go ahead.
Oh, it sounds like we're going to see you again next month.
I know, but let's just get this done now.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jamie.
Well, I think like I was sort of thinking about Victoria and my little outburst this evening, because I think that like I know that sounds like a backhanded compliment, but that's not the way I meant it. But I think that like what you bring to this board and what you brought when we were running on a slate is the alternative perspective that is presented so respectfully and like carefully and kindly, but that like always advances the discussion. I think that without you, so much of what we have covered in the last 4 years would not have been as nuanced. And I'm really gonna miss that. I think like it's so important, like the 7 of us we think together, that's the idea. And you help us think better. And I don't know what we're going to do without that part of our brain. Like you always have a question. And oftentimes I'm just ready to like sail forward with something and you'll ask a question. It'll make me think totally differently about something. But you always did it in a way that I think acknowledged the work and the labor of the staff and of your colleagues. And I'm just really in awe of you and I'll miss you.
Well, I remember our time running together as a slate. And I think there's a photo of myself and Victoria helping to push Adelie's chubby toddler legs into a snowsuit. And because we were so busy talking and we were distracted, I think we put both legs in one hole. But I really enjoyed getting to know you, Victoria. You know, what's interesting is that, you know, we didn't know each other socially or through work in any other way, and yet we found each other through a mutual interest and love for the library. Folks just don't know how hard Victoria has worked for the library and the background that Victoria has. If I remember right, you're a first generation college student, right? College graduate from your family. Mm-hmm. And having that kind of representation of knowing that, you know, you put yourself through school, you know, you raising a family, working hard, you know, going above and beyond is a thing I think we all hope for in elected leaders. And Victoria always goes above and beyond and unabashedly shares her thinking process. And that's valuable. So you'll be missed, but you're not far. We still live in the same town. And you remain committed to the library, to summer games. I look forward to seeing Victoria and I think we'll be popping up in board meetings when we can to share our comments. And it's great that we have a relationship with each other where we feel like if there's something happening with the library, we can still reach out to the board and to Josie and Eli down the road. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Can we just vote and be done?
No, I just want to say that I also feel enormously grateful for your service. And as the board member with the most tenure, I've seen a lot of people come and go. But I really would second Jamie's comments too. And I think like you are, you know, like you've had some bravery and courageousness in going against the current in these meetings sometimes. And it's so healthy for us to practice that and to just be, you know, vulnerable and willing to kind of go there in a real way with with these issues in public, which is never easy to do. And you've showed a lot of leadership in that regard. So really thank you for that. And I also think, you know, all of us are only capable of holding so much of this board business in our brain at a given time. And I just think that there are areas of our business that you have been looking after in very specific ways that have been, like, I know to me, like a relief to know that there's someone just being so diligent and careful about this part so that I can be diligent and careful about another part. And it just is a good example about how we all work together to, like, look at the specific details, but then come together to get a really good, you know, we work together as a very, like, you know, cohesive group. So thank you. I see your partner in the back. Maybe he's hearing your accolades.
Matt, we love you too. All right, folks, any additional discussion? Shall we go on to roll call vote then?
Okay, Trustee Ackman,
Yes.
Trustee Green,
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Leha,
Yes.
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
Trustee Song,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Thank you, Victoria. And now the truly strange part where I have to introduce a resolution on myself.
Can I read this one?
Please and thank
Yes,
you.
you may.
I think this is my first one that I've read. So the board resolves that the Ann Arbor District Library Board would like to officially thank Lynn Song for her 4 years of outstanding service as an Ann Arbor District Library Board trustee. That the Ann Arbor District Library Board would like to recognize Lynn Song for her dedication, leadership, and commitment to the library, community, and staff. That all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
Thank you. Can I get it? I'd like to entertain a motion to.
So moved. So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Lynn, it's hard to believe that you're leaving.
Oh, are we going to see you next month, Lynn?
Yeah.
Or will you let me lead the meeting? I'm excited to step up and lead the meeting in your absence. We know that you have important council work. But anyway, thank you so much for recruiting so many of us, right, in this room today, but mostly me, right? Thank you for that. It was wonderful working with you as long as, you know, I've had the opportunity to do that. I've learned a lot about teamwork. Also, Victoria, I will miss you. I didn't get a chance to say that. I know I have to turn attention away from Lynn, but I will also miss her critical perspective and keen eye for details. But Lynn, just your, you know, joy and your, you know, welcoming nature and always looking on the bright side and always fighting for this board, which nobody pays attention to and ignores. I'm glad that we have someone on council that really will pay attention to us in our work and how powerful we are and what we do for the community. I know you won't forget us. I know you'll turn to us if you need us, and that's going to be great and awesome because we still have really important work to do. And the truth is we need partners in the community to build bigger than we are, because we will continue to serve and we will continue to do a great job because we have people like you who are willing to step up and volunteer and recruit other people to do the same. We have an amazing incoming board, and I think lots of those new people are, you know, willing to come on because they see you out there fighting for us. And so thank you for that as well.
Can I say a little bit about Lynn? So again, Lynn and I didn't know each other. We probably met when we started running for the board the first time. But I want to call out two things that I've really appreciated about you, Lynn. First of all, is that you never back down from work. When there's something to do, you're not put off by whether it's difficult. You look at what's important and keep moving forward. And I so appreciate that your ability to do that with this board. We've had some things we've accomplished, some things we haven't that we would have liked to have, but it was never because you weren't willing to set an agenda and move forward with the items. And the second thing I want to say that I really appreciate and wish I did as well as you do is not just to always be thinking first about equity, and to be able to inspire others with your language to do so. I think that you've been a consistent voice on this board for the need to put equity first, and you've done it. I mean, I actually think everyone on this board probably thinks that way, but I think that you've done an outstanding job of leading us to remember that as the critical part of the service that we provide. So I want to say thank you for that, Lynn.
I can't believe it's time, Lynn. I'm sorry, you have to listen to me. It's like the theme of tonight. I'm not sure what's happening. I just like, it's hard to imagine the board without you. It really is. You are like a force of nature that I think people sort of swirl around, and you like push things forward. And without you on this board, it's really hard to imagine kind of who is going to fill that role. Like, because I think that only you just have this like magnetic and, like others have said, enthusiastic personality. Like Victoria said, you do call out and get us to think about people who are marginalized, but in this way that's like incredibly joyful and positive. And so you're so funny. Like I think we laugh a lot on the board, and I will really miss that in particular, your sense of humor and your self-deprecation, I think, as well. Like, I think you're always willing to like acknowledge when something like has happened that I think other people might not, other people might not call attention to. And I really appreciate that about you. But yeah, I mean, you're something else, Lynn, and you're going places, and we all knew that from the beginning. So we feel lucky that we got 4 years with you.
Thank you.
I mean, Lynn, we've known each other for a long time now, going back to the days at New. And I think that what has always struck me about you is just your sense of being a real leader in this community, and also just your commitment to Ann Arbor. And I think the fact, that we're losing you, but City Council is gaining you is a huge, huge deal. And I also have been really inspired by just how your leadership in particular around how we think about our downtown location, and then how we think about it in the context of all the other moving parts of what downtown looks like politically and governmentally, has been just a huge gift and asset to this group, to be able to be conversant in what it means to be a player in this kind of weird puzzle, or piece in this weird puzzle of downtown. So thank you for that. And knock them dead in City Council, make our town great.
I want to
stop myself from saying make our town great again.
I've really appreciated, I think this won't be a repetition, but I think it's a thread throughout. I really appreciated, Lynn, how you're such a good public advocate for the library. And I think you do that both in the meetings and outside of the meetings. I think in the meetings, I'm always impressed with your ability to kind of like, I don't know, translate what's going on and what we're discussing in a way that the public can really get insight into like how we're thinking and how the staff is working and how important we are, as an institution of the community. And then also seeing you take every opportunity to advocate for the library. I think even in the City Council meeting yesterday, you mentioned the library gave the board credit for something. And so I just really appreciate that. And I know that you'll continue to do that. So we will definitely miss you, but wish you all the best.
I want to jump into just, Lynn, I think I've probably known you the shortest amount of time, but the story of how we met, I think really tells a lot about you as a leader. I was organizing a protest about the family separations. News first broke, and I was the one sort of wrangling speakers, and I got this Facebook message from a stranger who said, "I want to speak at your protest." And I was like, who is this lady? And then Lynn had this beautiful way of explaining her story and her background in a way where I was like, oh yeah, no, I do. Please speak at our protest. And, you know, Lynn brought such wonderful perspective. She brought her parents. You brought your parents, I believe, to this protest. And it was so meaningful. And then, you know, I've since gotten the opportunity to know you better. I wouldn't be here on the library board without your encouragement. It was something I thought maybe someday, but seeing your leadership and the way that you balance all of the different aspects of your life made me feel like I could do it and I could bring, like, you know, everything to the board. And so thank you for that, for modeling that for me and for, I think, for a lot of people.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I did not ask any of you. I did not prepare this ahead of time. Thank you. That was just so kind of everyone. I mean, you know, it's such a privilege to be able to represent the library in any way. I mean, I go around town saying, look, you guys, there's an affordable housing crisis. There's a housing crisis. Librarians can't afford to live here. And I feel like that's a discussion that needs to happen throughout our community. Librarians, nurses, teachers. I've learned so much. I feel like this is the foundation of, you know, understanding what our community can do, what it's done. Gosh, my interest in running for the library, I mean, really, the 2012 bond failure was the start to understand, like, oh, there's something happening locally here, and I think we need to start paying attention instead of just using library services. I need to understand who's on the board, how decisions are made, who the leadership is, and I think that's good training from experiencing library services directly too. As a kid, you know, ESL kid, first born in this country, checking out books and trying to learn American history, American culture alongside my parents has been really formative. And to be able to somehow take part in this process of, you know, just talking to a library director, working with fellow trustees it's beyond anything I had ever anticipated in my life. So I'm so grateful for all this time that we spent together. And it's a lot of time, you know, all this time during board meetings, committees. We did strategic planning, we did offsites. We, gosh, you know, we walked the sites when there's repainting. There's so many things happen at the library and all of our events. It's a magical thing to see our community come together across income, across experiences. Like it's community making. So I don't want to ramble on too much because we actually have to vote on this. So thank you, everyone. That was very, very kind of you. So Eli, can you help us with a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Trustee Ackman.
Yes.
Trustee Green.
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman.
Yes.
Trustee Leha.
Yes.
Trustee Moore.
Yes.
Trustee Song.
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, gosh. So we have another agenda item to cancel the December meeting, but given the discussion, how about can I get an amendment to the agenda?
Actually, what you should do at this point, Lynn, is go ahead and motion
we can vote
it
on it
and vote
Yeah.
no, and vote
Okay.
no against it. Yeah.
I move to cancel the December 15th board meeting.
Second.
Did
Yeah.
I get the date right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
So then you could just call the roll call.
All right. Well, okay, great. Let's go ahead. Roll call. Thank you, Eli. Thank you,
Okay,
Josie.
Trustee Ackman.
First, no vote. No.
Trustee Green.
No.
Trustee Kleinman.
No.
Trustee Leha.
No.
Trustee Moore.
I don't know, you guys. I'm just kidding. No.
Trustee Song.
No.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
No.
Motion fails.
Oh, weird.
Yay. Do you want to check on because I know people had maybe adjusted their calendars already. Do we have a quorum for this meeting? Is there anyone that's was planning to be absent?
I know Green's really excited about running the meeting, so
Honestly, I didn't even know
Victoria's
until I looked at the agenda that we were thinking of getting rid of it, so.
Yeah, I mean, it was because there were the financials could be presented in January, the combined December-January financials could be presented then. So there was really no new business to entertain, but given the strength of tonight's discussion and ongoing questions, I'm sure we could have a brief and meaningful meeting. Yeah.
And while our meetings are usually on Mondays, I don't see any reason to move it from the Tuesday that probably already says on the website, right? Everyone's good with Tuesday?
We need to keep it on that same date because it wouldn't conflict with city council meeting.
Yeah, we changed it back in September. I think,
Yeah.
To accommodate
Great.
you.
Okay.
All right, so motion fails. Yay.
See you next month then.
Eli, do we have any public comments?
Someone commented on the YouTube stream, and their comment is cool.
All right.
I'll have.
So I would like to say on behalf of the staff to Victoria and Lynn, a thank you and an appreciation. I think that all the people who work for the public library do it. Many of them, if they don't come to the public library work because with a sense of mission, they develop one having worked in it, and a lot of pride in that work and a lot of pride in what that institution means and the service it provides for so many. And recognizing people who step up to run for election, to serve on a library board, is something that we all would like to express to you how much we appreciate that you did and that you have done this for us for 4 years and that you do it with such professionalism and knowledge and expertise, and that you are thoughtful and that you listen and appreciate the work, but also ask the good questions. We wish you both well as you move on, and we thank you very much for all that you brought to us.
And Josie, thank you for the flowers, Josie and Eli, and I don't know who else was involved in getting them to me, but thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You. Well, everyone, we've got homework to do. And then Josie will keep in touch with us. And then we will see you next month, and meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.